Hello everybody and welcome to the UKEndZone Football Daily Podcast, 22nd of August edition. And I think we're going to call this one the one with the background noise. Because my guest is a 2-year-old, I'm having a kitchen being fitted, so it's all going off. We'll do our best to keep it in check. Joining me today from the Dundee NFL podcast, the Fourth Down and Out Dundee NFL podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Dundee NFL, is Martin Forrester. Martin, how's it going?
Not too bad, Ollie. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
Well, I'm glad to have you on because we got to get to this straight out of the game. We're going to talk 49ers. You're a 49ers fan. You sat right now in a Michael Crabtree jersey.
For my sins.
Makes it more authentic. I have big thoughts on the 49ers because they're becoming a team that people are enjoying to, I don't want to use the word trash, but people are like piling on this team. They got all these injuries. Kaepernick can't get it done. They have essentially 3 head coaches running each part of their team. Kaepernick's going to be sensational with Greg Roman this year, and no matter who they put out on defense, they're going to be terrific.
Well, you say that, but I have my concerns. I do. We're weakened around the secondary because I think we lost most of our cornerbacks in the free agency. Our free safety obviously is gone. We drafted in that area, yes, but that secondary just looks too easy to pick apart right now. It's all well and good saying we can rush after the quarterback, but if they can pick us apart in the passing game, it doesn't matter how good our front seven is. And add to that the fact that we still don't know yet how long we're going to be without Alden Smith. And you start to worry. And we've never been an offensive juggernaut. We've always been a field position, run the ball. I know we've picked up some skill positions on the offense, but I'm just not yet convinced. This could be a difficult season for the 49ers, especially in the NFC West.
I'm hoping that they get forced into opening things up offensively. They went and traded for Stevie Johnson, which was a great move. They got a ton of wide receivers just waiting for their shot. They've been rookies, they've been drafting them a couple of years ago, still not getting their chance. You still got Anquan Boldin. You got a slew of running backs. I love some Carlos Hyde out of Ohio State behind Frank Gore. It's Frank's last year. Marcus Lattimore's trying to overcome his injury. They should just take the reins off Colin and say, let's just go and blow teams out the water because the defense is going to struggle when Alden's suspension comes down.
Possibly, but there are some rays of lights. We do have a couple of people. I believe it was I'm trying to think of his name now. Was it Skyler or something similar? A linebacker, Corey Lemonier. He certainly stepped up on a few occasions whilst Alden Smith was out last season. So we've got people coming through, and a lot of people love to hate Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, if he's your head coach, you love him. And I put a lot of faith in him. He's going to get the best out of the players he's got there. What you say about the wide receiving corps, that's all well and good. Colin Kaepernick has yet to truly prove that he can be a complete pocket passer. And they seem to be trying to mold him that way last year. He didn't really start to run until the playoffs. So they wanted him to stay in the pocket. They brought people in to help him out with that. And he's got a bullet of a pass. So, yeah, I'm being a bit pessimistic just because I want to be. I want us to prove a lot of people wrong, and there are a lot of good things for the 49ers, but we're certainly approaching this season with a few more dark clouds than we have in the past 2 years.
I'm all in on the 49ers. I think they're going to prove everyone wrong and shut them all the hell up. With Colin, I had this big rant yesterday in another pod that I did about the way these teams, they draft quarterbacks and then they try and change them. And it makes zero sense to me as a guy who watches collegiate football and follows the draft all year long. If I'm drafting Colin Kaepernick, I ring someone from Nevada and I say, come and work on our staff and let's run the damn playbook you ran at Nevada. Why are these teams, and the 49ers have done it like you said before, why are they trying to turn Colin into a pocket passer when I know you can talk about the risks of injury, but if you stand, if you just stand tall in the pocket and someone cold clocks you off the edge, like happened to Brady and he tore his ACL, you can still get injured. And it just makes him a more effective player and will make him more confident.
I hear what you're saying, but I've got 2 words for you with regards to why we're hoping he doesn't get injured. Blaine Gabbert.
That's a great one. That's a great. My whole argument just fell apart.
He's our backup right now, so you're right in what you say. Colin Kaepernick, he's most devastating when he's running, and I think we'll see more of that during the regular season than we did last year. But at the same time, you just need to look at who's holding that clipboard to think, well, maybe we'll just put that pistol back away now, and maybe we'll just stick with the pocket passing until he gets better at it, rather than risk the possible decapitation and Blaine Gabbert taking us through the rest of the season.
Oh God, he was bad. He's been so bad. It's not even funny how bad he's been. I was all in on Gabbert 2.0. He's a top pick in the draft. He could really read defense as well. I thought he'd be at least effective when he got there if they needed him with the great quarterback coaches you have there in Harbaugh and Roman. And he's looked even worse. How has this happened?
I have no idea. It's almost like he was but Balky sent him to Harbour as punishment for not taking his contract, just to prove, look, you can't do everything right with all these players. To have a go with Blaine Gabbert, and then we'll talk about your contract. Maybe that was the case, but he's been woeful. It makes me want Colt McCoy back.
Do you have concerns about this clear division between the coaching staff and the front office?
No, because they're just very, very strong individuals, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You've had that in the past with other franchises. I trust them to be professional. At the same time, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Jim Harbaugh wasn't with the 49ers when his contract runs out, if he moves to someone else, if someone else is willing to pay him ludicrous money. I think a lot hinges on this season as well. If we have a kind of a worse season this year, bizarrely, I think Harbaugh will actually sign on the dotted line, and we'll get him for the amount that maybe Bulk is hoping for. If we have another great season with all these problems that I've already listed, then forget about it. He's going to be wanting ludicrous amounts of money, and we'll either pay it, which I don't think will happen with that with our back office staff, or he's going to go somewhere like Dallas.
Is his contract up this year?
I think he's still got 2 years on his contract, so it'll be this year in 2015. It'll be the end of 2015 that you'd run through to.
I'm going to start the campaign now. They should trade him to Oakland, or they should trade him to Cleveland. Cleveland tried to trade for him. Trade the coach. Who cares? Greg Roman's an unbelievable coach and should be a head coach. He knows the pulse of the team. He knows enough about Colin Kaepernick to figure out. I'd trade him. I really would.
Well, I have to admit, I was shocked that we still have Greg Roman. I was fully expecting him and our defensive coordinator, to be honest, to be poached with all of the head coaches' vacancies that were around in the off-season. So I'm just doing a wee skip and a jump that we've still got these guys for this season at least. Now, it may not be the case for next year, but we can run it for a wee bit longer yet.
I think I just found a column idea. Trade Jim Harbaugh for Greg Roman. I like that. Is there anything else in the 49ers we should really be watching for? For people who haven't watched them so closely because we're trying to scan the rest of the league, is there one guy that we should be looking at and saying this guy's going to elevate his game and become a real household name?
I think you know everybody there, but there is a guy, I've forgotten his first name, but he's a wide receiver that we drafted, Ellington. Now, he has looked pretty special in training camp. I'm once again just dampening down a few expectations here, because the same thing was said about LaMichael James 2 years ago. But he, as a wide receiver, as a guy who can get the ball and really break off big gains, make people miss, just add that bit of electricity into the wide receiving core. He's turning a lot of heads. So I would keep an eye out for him. Other than that, the thing about the 49ers is you know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to run it at you. Every now and again, they'll pass it. That's been helped with Anquan Bolden, the closest to a tight end you'll ever find in the wide receiver core, and Stevie Johnson, although there is reports now that he's not necessarily guaranteed the third wide receiver spot. So once again, the clouds over the 49ers. But no, I think Ellington's the guy to look out for. Other than that, look out for Frank Gore and his final year with the 49ers.
Yeah, and he's definitely gone, by the way. People keep trying to convince me that he's going to come back. They're so clever. They're going to use him. He's going to be terrific, and they'll let him go. Do you have any concerns or reservations that our commissioner is trying to get the Oakland Raiders to share a stadium with you? When you just left one of the greatest stadiums in all of pro sports, which was blasphemous, and you go to this beautiful-looking Levi Stadium, now they're like, maybe we should put Oakland in there as well.
I don't think the pitch could handle it. I don't know whether you've seen the reports today, but yeah, they're already tearing up the turf because it didn't handle the one preseason game we've had. As for sharing it with the Oakland Raiders, I don't think the Raiders would be keen on that. They're an individual franchise. They're not looking to stay in Oakland, I don't think. I think they've made that very clear, so they're not going to want to move 40-odd miles down the road to us. They're looking for Los Angeles or wherever else might accept them.
All right, let's look at some of the headlines around the league. And I don't watch preseason football because I get so annoyed at how people get so carried away with it. When I'm telling everyone this, and I'll tell them all the time, when you turn up to training camp, 50 spots are already guaranteed, and it's usually due to money. And you've got 10 guys fighting over 3 unless there's an injury. So people blow it way out of proportion. Remember Zach Sudfeld last year for the Patriots, how he's going to blow everyone's mind, draft him in fantasy football. He got cut like 2 weeks in and went to the Jets and did nothing. That's just my little rant there. But I did watch the Eagles last night, and I have to say Nick Foles looked pretty damn good. Do you buy into Nick Foles? He's a really divisive character for someone who's not done anything wrong yet.
I don't buy into him. And it's not that he's done anything wrong. I think he's an adequate enough franchise quarterback, but last season, I think he only threw two interceptions in the whole what was it, 8 or 10 games that he played. Now, I don't care who you are, you're going to throw more than that. He's already thrown more than that in the preseason. I just think there's going to be a step back for him. It's not going to be massive. He's not going to turn into the Mark Sanchez from the New York Jets in overnight, and Mark Sanchez has even managed to look very good in that Chip Kelly offense. So I do think he's going to take a step back, but I don't think he's necessarily as bad as people are portraying. I think he'll be good. I think that Chip Kelly offense gets the best out of him, and he'll be efficient, but nowhere near as good as people might think.
Who'd have thought that maybe you use successful college concepts and you bring them to, high level football with better players, it would work out. No one's buying into what I'm saying. Genuinely, bring a college coach with your college quarterbacks, you fools. How about the Steelers running backs then? They're all smoking. Half the league's doing it, so I'm not too fussed, but they got busted for having crazy amounts on them. Isn't it, these running backs, their average career span is like 2 years. Can't you just wait and bank the money until you're done to smoke all the pot?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But then at the same time, maybe if they were a Denver running back core, then they could say it was medicinal or it was free, But it does strike me as bizarre, and we see it every single year in the off season and sometimes during the season itself. These guys on multi-million-dollar contracts throwing it away so they can get blazed whilst they're driving away from the preseason game. It just doesn't make any sense.
It really is bizarre. How about RG3 then? He's tweeting naysayers. That's what RG3 does. He doesn't go on the field and tell you. He tweets them. He garners the attention. What do you think about RG3?
I loved RG3. He landed, and he was probably the first player, around about the same time as Kaepernick at these guys, but he was the first guy to really run that pistol offense really effectively. People were taken by surprise. But once again, you ask him to do something different, and in this case, he's forced to do something different because of the knee injury, and he's not looked quite so good. So we may be naysayers, but maybe we're just unconvinced. And what you need to do, instead of trying to convince us via Twitter, get out on the pitch and convince us on there, and then we'll back you all the way.
I couldn't agree more. RG3 has to realise people are now dropping 8 people back against him and blanket covering because the guy can't run around as much as he used to anymore. He just can't. He also looked like, when he came out, Martin, he had Olympic speed. This is a guy who's a track superstar, could have represented anyone at the Olympics because of the way they use those Olympic rules now. And he decides, I want to play football. I'm going to roll over to the football campus at Baylor, and then becomes a Heisman Trophy winning superstar. He took a ton of hits, blew both ACLs, and he just can't run as quick anymore. I don't know why we're naysayers. It's like, just prove us, show us that you can stand in the pocket and throw the ball.
Well, exactly, and it's a difficult thing to do, and he is effectively changing his entire outlook of being a quarterback, and he's doing it after the first year was so successful for him. So it's got to be difficult. It's not like it's Michael Vick where you may be losing a step now that you've been in the league for so long. You've lost both knees, so now you're going to have to use that arm, and I do think he can do it, but I don't think we saw a flash of what could have been with RG3 in that first season after he came out of the draft. Unfortunately now, he's never ever going to be as good as that, I don't think. I still think he can be good, but we just saw a glimpse of what could have been with RG3 before that injury.
I agree with you. The Buffalo Bills then, this is possibly the most incompetent, inept coach in the entire NFL. I'm not afraid to say it. Doug Marrone should still be in college and he'll be back there next season. He halted practice after a fight. This has been a major topic of conversation, and it stunned me on all these ESPN.com, CBS, all these places about fights in training camp. They happen multiple times every day. I don't understand why everyone keeps posting about them.
Well, I wonder how much of this has to do with what happened last year in Miami. Mm-hmm. I wonder, because you saw your fair share of fights in the Miami training camp as well, and then we find out that there was this underlying issue going on there. So I just wonder whether this being highlighted a bit more because they're hoping for the next Richie Incognito situation or something like that. Maybe they're just highlighting it to try and turf up some underlying issues. I don't know, because you're right. These have happened a lot in the Hard Knocks series with the New York Jets. I think it was the New York Jets. I think Rex Ryan even put someone up to start in a fight just to get a bit of steel in one of the O-linemen. So this is stuff that's been going on since the very beginning of training camp. You'd expect it. It happens. Move on, because you're shaking hands within 5 minutes of it anyway.
I agree with you. I know people don't like Skip Bayless, but he did write a fabulous book on Jimmy Johnson's Cowboys. Go and read it. Jimmy would get in fights himself to try and get some steel into guys, and they're all in pads. It's just part and parcel of the game, and it stuns me that they're doing it. And it's a great point you make about the media maybe looking for that, and also promoting this almost thuggery in football. It's like they can't wait for it now.
Yeah, they're certainly waiting for that next one. Although it made me laugh because who was it? I think it was Steve Smith, who's now with the Baltimore Ravens, and he's going on about how the Ravens breed bullies, and they just thought this was a funny tagline. But if I was the media, I'd be saying, really? So when will Richie Incognito be joining you? Is that the type of person that you want? Is that the type of players that you're breeding? And they all just let it slide. But as you say, they're picking up any kind of scuffle in training camp and saying it's an evidence of thuggery.
All right, I wanted to finish today by looking at some breakout players. It's something people love to do at this time of year. I don't understand the fascination with naming someone a breakout player, but that's just me. One of the friends of the podcast, Mike Sander, wrote this piece for ESPN.com with the top 50 breakout players, and I love when people do these sort of lists, then put like 30 different precursors to the list. They can just put the favorite player at the top of the list. I love it. The guy has to be called DA, has to play tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, and number one's Dwayne Allen. It's surprising.
Yeah, shock.
Is there anyone, I mean, just looking at some of the standout names, maybe the skill positions of the top 10, at 2 is Ryan Tannehill, and I have no idea where the media darlingness love, especially with the NFL.com guys, and it's nothing against them, it's just the way they feel it's a different opinion about Ryan Tannehill. They're all in love with him, and all I do is I look at the fact that RG3 and Andrew Luck came into possibly worse situations, have had less money in draft picks spent on their sides, and both of them have made the playoffs. Andrew Luck won a playoff game, and yet Ryan Tannehill, I mean, he's done nothing. He takes a ton of sacks that he doesn't need to take. I genuinely don't understand that the fascination, this thing that watch out for Ryan Tannehill this year. This is the year it's going to happen for Ryan Tannehill. I just don't think he has it.
Well, I mean, I think part of it has to do with his story. I mean, this is a guy who went to college as a wide receiver and only became a quarterback, I think, in the last 2 seasons that he was in college. Then he's a first-round draft pick as a quarterback. He goes into Miami. Nobody's expecting him to start. Everybody's expecting, was it Moore?
Yeah.
Yes, Moore, to start ahead of him. We see all of this play out for us in Hard Knocks as well. And then he does well, despite the fact that his O-line is Swiss cheese. I mean, he was sacked 58 times last year, which is more than any, I think it's a record-breaking season for the Miami offensive line. And he still looked effective until, and this is the part where I start to get down on him, there was the potential of getting into the playoffs. Those last 2 games, where all they needed to do was win one of them, he stunk the place up. And again, a lot of that had to do with the O-line, but you just got to wonder if it's really on the line, is he able to stand up to it? And I'm not convinced yet.
I agree with you. The sack thing, though, does frustrate me because he takes a ton of them he doesn't need to take. He could throw the ball away. He's athletic guy. That's why he played wide receiver one time. And he just takes far too many sacks. And I think people will see this year with the new improved O-line, Brandon Albert's there. They still have the All-Pro at center. They drafted 2 really good guys in the draft. Juwan James out of Tennessee is going to be a stud straight away at right tackle. People will start to see that he's making too many mental errors and taking sacks he doesn't need to take at times. But I will give this to the Dolphins, Martin, because I'm the guy who just screamed like 10 minutes ago about bringing a college coach with him. At least they brought the college coach. They said, hey,
that's true.
Let's offer a ton of money to that college coach who got him drafted and let's see if he can run it. Now they've got rid of him, but at least they tried it.
Well, yes, it didn't quite work out, but that could be more to do with the fact that it didn't matter which quarterback you put behind that offensive line, they weren't going to get it done for the Miami Dolphins, I don't think, because you watch some of them, you're right that he was holding on to the ball for too long for some of the sacks, but in other cases, he was lucky to have got the ball from the center before he was hit. You know, it was that quick that they let people through, and you just can't do anything with that kind of offensive line.
And the other thing I love about Tannehill this year going in with the projections is they brought in Bill Lazor, who was the quarterback coach of Philadelphia last year. And anyone who's been associated with Chip Kelly now in life, people are trying to bring in and think it's going to have a magical effect. Again, let's go back to the college thing. The college coach at Oregon now is called Mark Helfrich. People may not know this. And he was the offensive coordinator when Chip Kelly was there. And the way it's always been described to me, their relationship was Chip was the mad scientist who would sit in his office with the whiteboard and draw things up. And Mark Helfrich was the guy who got handed this thing and had to put it into action. Why, Martin, is someone not saying, I've got $20 million here for coaching staff. I'm going to give 18 to this Mark Helfrich guy.
Yeah, well, 18 might be a bit much, especially as you could probably get him for 5. But you're right enough. I mean, I guess, where do you draw the line? Because you're right in what you say. Anybody who has ever met Chip Kelly at an after-match function seems to be getting brought in as some sort of offensive guru. But at the same time, it seems like the wrong people are being brought in. The quarterback coach is an offensive coordinator, whereas his offensive coordinator for however many years is still sat back in college. I don't know. I mean, maybe people are just still not quite there with Chip Kelly. And you got to say, whilst he didn't totally revolutionize offense in the NFL, as some people were saying, he did bring something different. And it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with a full off season and a full season behind him this year. It's one of the more interesting stories.
No doubt about it. I love Monty Ball out of Denver to have one of these breakout seasons this year. No, Sean Marino was really good last year, but there was times when no one's in the box against Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. And so there's just tons of space, and he makes a lot of misreads. And I like No Sean Marino when he had great stats and stuff, but it could have been better if you had a guy who just had better vision and made better decisions. Monty Ball, I think, is going to have a pretty damn good year.
Well, I did say last year that if you put Frank Gore in that offense, then God help you, he could have been 15, 16, 17 touchdowns. No Sean Marino was okay. Monty Ball, though, I don't know whether you remember, but he was supposed to be the starting running back. Yes. He was touted as going in straight from his rookie, and he had some fumbling issues, and he had some pass block issues as well. Now, if you can't pass block for Peyton Manning, you're not going to stay in there for very long. So you got to hope that he's improved in that regard, and you got to hope that the fumbling is packed in. But if that's the case, then yeah, he's going to have a great season. But I'm just sounding so pessimistic today, aren't I? But maybe it's just because I drafted him last year and got stung by those fumbles before he was dropped for No Sean Marino. Maybe that's what it is. My fantasy bias is coming in.
At 20, Mike Sando has Sam Bradford, and I have no idea, and we're going to have to message him later collectively as a podcast family, how Sam Bradford qualifies for a breakout when the guy has been in the league for a while now as a Heisman Trophy winner, clearly hasn't done anything. For some reason, Jeff Fisher is buying into him, passing up RG3, passing up Geno Smith, all these other shots he could have had at bringing in his own quarterback. Sam Bradford for a breakout season, really?
Well, that's because he hasn't broken out yet. You're right in what you say. He's been here for, crikey, as long as I've been following the NFL recently. I mean, he's shown up on all of my Madden games that I've bought, but he's not done anything. He's shown flashes. He looks efficient, but he doesn't do anything which blows the door down. He's not a passer like Manning. He's not a runner like Kaepernick. He's not someone who can keep the play alive like Russell Wilson, but he's someone who can pass the ball to a wide receiver. So I suppose he's already ahead of Blaine Gabbert, but he's just not done anything that really jumps him out. So maybe this is the year. They've got some players in. There's a lot of talk going on about Kenny Britt. They're talking about him being back to the kind of form that had him touted as one of the top 5 wide receivers, and they've got him on a prove-it contract. So, yeah, the Rams, they're just very, very unlucky that they're in the NFC West. They can have a great season and still not make the playoffs, just like the Arizona Cardinals did last year.
I agree with you. Let's end with 2 things then. What's your favorite storyline? Your overarching storyline that you can't wait to see play out? Something that's not the 49ers. Something else that's gonna play out over the season. You're like, that's gonna be really fun to watch.
I'm probably going to go back to what I said earlier. Chip Kelly. I've really enjoyed watching him. I mean, there were a couple of stories around head coaches like Riverboat Ron Rivera at the Carolina Panthers all of a sudden deciding to go for it on 4th and 8 and 4th and 6 just because he figured he was going to get sacked the next week. But Chip Kelly, he does come up with new and interesting ways of running the offense. I would love to see, and this is just my cynical side, I'd love to see Mark Sanchez put pressure on Nick Foles for the starting quarterback job at the Eagles, just to prove one up on the New York Jets. But yeah, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the Eagles and see how well they do this year.
I'm going to make a callback as well to win the pod. I'm all in on the Buffalo Bills. I don't think people realize how much of a car crash that whole situation is going to get and get in a hurry. AJ Manuel, injured his thumb and refused to play. The guy's in the NFL now. He's not at Florida State. Favre is going out there with a cracked wrist. Get out there and throw the ball, for God's sake. So I'm all in on that. They got a college coach trying to run an NFL team. They traded away their first round draft pick, which I kind of agree with. Sammy Watkins is pretty special. But that thing will get bad in a hurry. And we could get some fabulous stories coming out of there with people just piling on EJ Manuel.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. We did a power rankings on our podcast just recently, and I had them at 31st. I think it's going to go south in a very, very bad way.
I agree. And also, they're going to get sold. People, you can't overlook that halfway through the season, they may be moving to Montreal, and so they'll all be quitting ASAP.
Yeah, living on a prayer, aren't they?
Oh, look at Martin. Have you got a Super Bowl prediction, an early Super Bowl prediction?
I actually think that the Denver Broncos are going to get their redemption. I can see them with that newly tooled defense. I can see them romping through the AFC. Nobody's good enough to keep up with them in that division right now, or that conference, I should say. And then I think the NFC are just going to hamper each other. The Seahawks and the 49ers are going to tear strips out of each other, and there's not going to be a team strong enough by the end of it. It's up to the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos will get their redemption. Peyton Manning wins the Super Bowl and rides off into the sunset with as many rings as his brother Eli.
And when you talk about the Denver, and I ask people, you have to ask them the same question you ask everyone. Do they have a salary cap? Are we sure they have a salary cap?
I think John Elway's maybe sold his soul to get the amount of players in under the salary cap, but they're in a win-now situation. I wouldn't like to necessarily be a Denver Broncos fan in 2 seasons' time, but it's a good time to be a fan right now.
I agree with you. I'm all in the camp. They should trade their entire draft for the next 2 years and just sign veterans now who are available. You know, if Andre Johnson's available, just go and get him. Just do it. Go all in with Peyton. Is what's going to happen after that? You're going to stink anyway. You'll have a top pick. Just don't trade the first pick and trade the other 7.
Yeah, why not? Or you never know. You might get that wee dash of Indianapolis luck, and just happen to have a poor season just in time to bring the next Peyton Manning in, just like Indianapolis Colts did.
No doubt about it. All right then, Martin, we'll leave you there. Give yourselves a quick plug for the Dundee NFL podcast.
Well, we are the Fourth Down and Out podcast. We're the only, as far as I'm aware, Scottish podcast dedicated to the NFL. We're a weekly show. We love a bit of banter. We love our fantasy football, and we've got a heck of a community building up around Twitter. We always answer questions each week. So if you like to talk a bit about football, look us up, as you say, at Dundee NFL and get in touch. And we love to answer your questions during our podcast.
Is that banter like what normal people would think banter, or is that what English football's LMA consider banter?
No, this is normal. Well, I say normal banter. Maybe it's hard to discern what normal is when it comes to banter. But yes, it's certainly a welcoming banter. There's no viciousness there yet.
All right, then. We'll leave it there. Martin, thank you for joining me. This has been the 22nd of August edition of the UKEndZone Football Daily Podcast. Check them out at Dundee NFL on Twitter. Download their podcast after you listen to this one. Martin, we'll get you on again sometime.
It would be a pleasure. Thanks very much for bringing us on.